He said it. I didn't say it. He said it. And now we know. I'm going to be real explicit today. And I know it's just a Tuesday morning, but you ever have these moments where things just lock into focus? You just get it. And here's the deal. It's not for Donald Trump, the Republican king, America first. It's, as you know, as you're thinking, Donald Trump first. However, even Donald knows he can't go it alone. He didn't finance his campaign alone. He does not suck all the value out of America alone. He needs people to do the work for him in order for them, because he knows he doesn't want to actually do work. He wants to play golf and ride around in a gold-plated plane and sit on his gold-plated toilet and tweet on his gold-plated phone. So he needs accomplices. So how this works, and it's pretty primitive, what I'm telling you. The bottom line is there is a hierarchy. And at the very top, right below the king, at that next level, and it's just the way it is in Donald Trump's world, it's rich, white Republicans first. Rich, white people first. That's it. And I could say rich white men, but it's also rich white women first. And finally, there is explicit proof that this is his plan for America. And what I want to share with you first is a video. The first video I'm sharing is actually not Donald Trump, but one of his employees, in theory, one of ours, who at a press conference responded to reporters' questions, which you will hear, about why yesterday we, meaning Donald Trump, expedited the immigration of roughly 50 people from South Africa, 50 people who are referred to as Afrikaners, meaning they were of Dutch origin, that he believes that the Afrikaners, the white minority in South Africa, who still owns a vast majority of land, but the white minority in South Africa, previously the party before apartheid ended, that imposed race-based separation and domination of people who weren't white. But this is who the people now. And he says that they're being killed and that he described it as a genocide. This is Donald Trump. I'm backing up. And so Donald Trump justified letting them come in to the country. And the deal is, there's no one who thinks what's going on in South Africa, where farmers are being killed for their land, and it's a lot of crime, and it is not good. No one thinks it's a genocide against Afrikaners, because you know what? Some of the farmers being killed, it's indiscriminate based on race. But nevertheless, I want America to be a place that is open to those who are genuinely seeking asylum from either persecution or violence based on their nationality, race, class, and so on. But that's not what Donald Trump wants, because as you know, as you probably know, Donald Trump is withdrawing, and the Supreme Court is hearing. He is asking to withdraw from Afghan refugees, including people who helped us in Afghanistan. He is looking to withdraw and send them home, withdraw their temporary protected status. What about the people from Haiti who are living in Springfield, Missouri? And we all laughed because he was saying the people there, the immigrants, were eating the cats, they're eating the dogs of the people in Springfield, right? We thought that was batshit crazy, and it is. But it was also a lie, The people there are beloved by the original residents of the area. People stood up for them in the town. But he also doesn't want any of them to be in this country. Now, I don't know if you notice something that I'm describing, but generally, not always, people of Haitian descent are not perceived as white. And I'm putting that in quotes because race is a construct based on domination, but it's also about colorism, about the appearance of your skin. So think about that for a moment. And now let's turn to the question that a reporter asked someone on Trump's staff about why it was there was this expedited process for these Afrikaners. Let's listen now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to know, there were many, from the BBC, there are many people who fit the criteria of seeking help, who are fleeing persecution. Afghans, for example, they live in a country run by the Taliban, but they're being denied refugee status. So I'm wondering, why has such an exception been made for the Afrikaans, especially when the South African government says they're not in danger? And are you going to open up the refugee settlement program for others?
Thank you for that question. I think you may recall that on the president's first day in office, on January 20th of this year, he issued an executive order that paused U.S. refugee programs that had been going at record levels under the prior administration and had brought in people that we were not sure had been carefully vetted for national security issues, and put a pause on the refugee admission program in general. That pause, of course, was subject from the very beginning to exceptions where it was determined that this would be in the interest of the United States. Some of the criteria are making sure that refugees did not pose any challenge to our national security and that they could be assimilated easily into our country. So the president.
The criteria is that they could be assimilated easily into our country. Whose country? We are diverse. We're diverse regionally. We're diverse culturally. We are beautiful, a beautiful tossed salad of creativity, diversity, different ways of being. This is how the society develops. It's glorious. But what they're saying is they believe white Afrikaners can assimilate better into our country. What country are they talking about? They're talking about the idea, not the city on the hill. They're talking about a country that they envision, the country that they want, where men dominate women, where Christianity is the state religion, the country where the white, wealthy, and well-connected can get away with all manner of fraud and predation. I'm not making this up. Why do you think Donald Trump pardons such people when they commit white-collar crimes that hurt people, right? So that is that. But I need to now share with you what Donald Trump said earlier, right? That was a deputy secretary of state. He works for Marco Rubio. And he thought there was nothing wrong with saying that Donald Trump had paused all refugee admissions programs. And the only refugees they were going to be letting in were, one, if they, passed, they didn't have a national security risk, and two, if they could assimilate. I'd like to know whether the folks who were used to a society where white people ruthlessly and violently dominated over anyone who was not perceived as white, if those kinds of people who are used to literally white domination and privilege can assimilate into what I believe is a multicultural democracy. Can they? Will they? And again, I treat every human being as a human being. Don't go off when you find them and attack them. Now, before I get to what Donald Trump had to say about this, I want to let you know that I'm not the only one who is, in this case, I wouldn't say shocked, Some are shocked and some are annoyed. My brain just clicked into place that this is just about the caste system. And I use the word caste, C-A-S-T-E, like Isabel Wilkerson used in the book Caste. We have a invisible caste system that many of us have previously. Maybe you called it the old boys network, but that's not big enough. But this hasn't really dominated life because we were able to, over the years, break down the visible domination system in the United States of race-based chattel slavery. Let's not forget that that existed for 400 years. We're able to break that down. It took a flippin' civil war and it took legal changes, and we're able to expand our multicultural democracy through the power of the people, like MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., and the people in the streets, and everyone acting in the civil rights movement. That was the outside game. The inside game were presidents, including Lyndon Johnson. And of course, we continue into the future. We've got also, of course, Barack Obama. Well, we also have, Nixon and Barack Obama, and Kennedy. I'm throwing in these presidents in, and Biden. And over the years, we have learned to expand the voting franchise, expand freedom in this country, break down barriers to access to jobs and education and so on. So what is Trump doing? I think you know everything about gutting the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. John Roberts helped when he partially eviscerated the Voting Rights Act, saying, we don't need any court supervision over restrictions on voting. And now we know exactly what they're trying to do. They want to return to a system in America that predates, predates the civil rights movement. I mean, Donald Trump himself is in love with the late 19th century around the Jim Crow, around the breakdown of Reconstruction in the beginning of Jim Crow in this country is kind of maybe his fondest era. His father attended a Klan rally. We know from his family that people in that family were outright racist and anti-Semitic. So, and the sexism, please. So if you look at what that Deputy Secretary of State said yesterday, and you unpack as a text, back, I came up as an English major, and anything can be a text to read. If you read both the fact of the opening for the first time this year of the refugee program and the expediting of bringing in 50 people who are white Afrikaners, and I'm going to say that they're white in a second. Okay. I mean, I said they're white. I'm going to explain that. Sorry. I want to explain that. And I think I already explained that not all farmers who are being killed for their land are white, but these folks are white Afrikaners. And again, I'm putting that in quotes because all we heard from the Deputy Secretary is that they're Afrikaners. And I wonder what your definition of whiteness is, because people marry each other and there are mixed race people. And I can't believe I'm getting gross like this, but I'm just saying this text of letting these folks onto that let me just back up. A plane from the United States flew to South Africa, picked them up, and brought them to the United States. That text explained also through this Deputy Secretary of State. Deputy is incredible. But now I need to add for you the finishing touch, which is Donald Trump himself being asked similar questions earlier in the day.
Discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, right, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me.
There it is. They happen to be white. And then he says, whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. It makes all of the difference, Donald. And we know it. They happen to be white. Let's look at that sentence. Facts, my friends, is that the farmers that are being robbed in South Africa are black and white. I mean, to the extent that we're going to divide racial identity, it's more complicated, obviously. So number one, he is acknowledging his bias right there. Secondly, like he cares about genocide in any other country in the world, right? Let's see where genocide is going on right now. Depending on how you classify this, you could right now, there are in Sudan, in West Darfur, there is a genocide happening, and the estimated number of people who have been killed, 130,000. There still is genocide going on in Myanmar. There is obviously genocide going on in Ukraine. And what's going on with that? There's currently, right now, depending on how, and I want to be real careful here when I discuss Israel and Palestine, but there are people who describe the plans that Netanyahu has in the existing war, denying access to food and humanitarian treatment and medicine to children and families in Gaza. That can be referred to as a genocide. I don't choose that word myself. It's complicated. However, given that there are experts who refer to it as that, and I do believe what Netanyahu, as well as Hamas, has done has been ongoing war crimes, no question in my mind. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that all these places in the world, there are people being killed, and it's terrible. And not one of those places has Donald Trump decided to suspend refugee status to admit people. But instead, as you are aware, not only has he not expedited, let's just go through this. If he had allowed refugee status and applications for people in other countries where there are genocide, good, that would have been good, but he didn't. If he had expedited it, that would have been good, but he didn't. And even the people who are in this country, and let's just be clear, Kilmar Abrego Garcia came to this country from El Salvador out of fear of being killed. People are being killed by gangs in El Salvador. And Donald Trump thinks it's justified to whisk him away and send him back to the country on flimsy allegations with no evidence of any crime at all, just based on tattoos, send him back to a gulag in El Salvador. There are refugees in our country who are whisked away and sent to Panamanian prisons in the jungle. We are now setting up a plan, in case you didn't know this, to send people to Libya. Let me share this with you. This was about a week ago, and I've saved this. Trump administration plans to send migrants to Libya on a military flight. Human rights groups have called conditions in the country's network of migration detention centers horrific and deplorable. And this was a piece in the Times. I have the authors here. You can see, for those of you who are not aware of where Libya is, right there between Algeria and Egypt in northern Africa. By the way, if you're looking at this map and you take a look, you can also see right there next to the right of Egypt, see that little bump, the Sinai Peninsula. Do you see that? And okay. And to the right of that, this very skinny strip of land right there. I mean, it's very hard to see. the edges of it, but that is Israel right there, in case you don't know. Now, of course, those planes were stopped. Donald Trump is welcoming, using American planes to bring in people who he says are white to the US as refugees, when he is taking people who have been law abiding citizens, own businesses, children, all kinds of people, and he's whisking them away, allowing people, thugs who are ICE or Homeland Security, I don't know who they are, in masks, to take them away in violation of their rights, claiming that they are all criminals when there is no evidence of that, and putting them on planes and taking them out of the country to places where he claims he cannot return them. Friends, it's not just authoritarianism. It's not just a budding dictatorship. It's not just fascism. It's fascism for a specific reason. Again, Donald Trump knows that if he has an in-group, this is what leaders who are corrupt do. If he has his in-group who know they are favored by him, they will, and they have privileges, they will go along. They will look the other way because they will know they have money or the status based on their perceived racial, gender, and religious identity to be protected. And so, again, this is the country where they're supporting and elevating people who are white, wealthy, and well-connected, largely Christian people. Okay, so that is what Donald Trump is establishing as what it means to be in America. Now, if you want another piece of evidence for this thesis I'm building, and don't worry, I'm going to get to the airplane because there's more on that golden flipping airplane. If you want more, another piece of the puzzle to this thesis that we don't really matter to them, let's talk again about Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation. And the reason why I want to speak about him is because, we just dealt with him yesterday. And one thing he said yesterday, because I got two things on tap for you. One thing he said yesterday that I shared with you was that he was saying there are all these problems with the computer systems, and, everyone was ignoring that. And now here we are. And the deal is, though, that is actually not true, right? Joe Biden actually allocated, I can't remember the exact number, and I think it's in the billions, but allocated a ton of money. Okay, so it was, here we go. I've got the Department of Transportation website. I want to share with you because I want to give you the receipts. I always bring the receipts in my mind, and but I want to bring them on paper here. Okay, so here we are on the Department of Transportation website, and this is still up, and it says it's dated October 24, 2024. Investing in America. Biden-Harris administration announces nearly $1 billion in funding to modernize airport terminals across 46 states. Nearly $1 billion in funding. And why? Well, they need the money for updating. And to be clear, it says today's announcement is the fourth investment of nearly $4 billion, furthering the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to rebuilding our nation's infrastructure. Great. And here we have, this is key. Historically, the FAA has invested in runways, air traffic control towers, and back of house infrastructure. And the bipartisan administration's bipartisan infrastructure law includes a new program focused on making the passenger experience better, and so on. Okay, so we got a lot going on there, right? And there's mentioning that there's all this money going into infrastructure, but they also want to make the passenger experience better. What about Sean Duffy? What is his view of the passenger experience? Well, I think what I'm going to show to you is it depends on who you're talking about. You and me, he doesn't give a fuck. What about his passenger experience? We'll get to that. So let's listen to what he had to say with his lies about the Biden administration.
Last 4 years, the last administration, they knew this was a problem. And by the way, during COVID, when people weren't flying, that was a perfect time to fix these problems. Over the last 4 years.
Wait, what? Okay. Did you just hear that? And I've got to, that almost slipped by. Who's going to tell Sean Duffy? I'm going to play that again. Who's going to tell Sean Duffy when COVID began? Let me do it. Duffy. Transportation Secretary Duffy. The COVID pandemic broke out in the US in around February to early March of 2020. Donald John Trump was president of the United States, and he said this thing was going to go away. Remember that? But he also allowed allowed people before he announced closing parts of the country in the during the quarantine periods. He also announced that he had meetings where there were presentations where members of the House and Senate were able to get information that led them to make really lucrative stock trades. But basically, in 2020, air travel shut down. And let's be clear. I think it was basically global. So basically, I'm looking at some of the numbers, but we had a huge shutdown and huge reduction in flights. And basically, I think that what I'm seeing here is that a huge chunk of travel was shut down. I'm seeing that in marketplace.org. Let's look at that website. There was an article in April of 2020 saying this follows: the devastation that COVID has caused on countless industries is still becoming clear. And they said about 95% of the population had been told to stay home. And they said that means almost nobody is flying. And I'm going to show you that picture right now about what that looked like. Okay. Again, let's see this. Okay. So this is, again, I want to show you, this is an article from April of 2020, mid-April, around 5 years ago. And this is data based on the total number of TSA screenings, right? And Transportation Secretary Administration screenings across U.S. airports beginning March 1st, 2020. And the gray line at the top is 2019, and the red line shows 2020. And you can see March 8th, that was basically when everything starts to shut down, this thing plummets. So we go from about the number of screenings day by day by day. And we get on March 1st, there's roughly the same number from the previous year. We're talking about 2.3 million screenings. And then by May, we're down to 200,000. Okay. So we're talking about a decline in 2 million people flying. So let's listen to what Transportation Secretary said, because we had that period of time and then air traffic began to pick up again. So I'm curious, when did people start flying again? I don't know. Do you remember during COVID? Let's see. I'm trying to see, when people started flying again. I think everybody was a bit different. I don't know the exact thing. I didn't begin flying again until 2022. But for sure, I think we can say with certainty that from that number that you just saw, from March, April, May of 2020, I want to ask you, who was president of the United States? Who was president? Bueller? Bueller? Yes, it was Donald Trump. Let's listen to Sean Duffy try to accuse Joe Biden, but being so stupid that he stabbed his own boss in the back. Let's do it.
4 years, the last administration, they knew this was a problem. And by the way, during COVID, when people weren't flying, that was a perfect time to fix these problems.
Yes, it was, Mr. Duffy. Yes, during COVID, when your current boss was president of the United States, what the fuck did he do about this? Number one. And number two, we very much know that when Joe Biden took office, he dedicated money to help fix not just the back office and air traffic control, but to enhance the customer experience. And what did you guys do when you came into office? You began shouting about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, the very process that we were talking about earlier that's designed to dismantle the invisible, still remaining caste system where the white wealthy men control everything, and allowing for diversity and breaking down barriers. You dismantled that. You fired air traffic controllers. You claimed that everything was woke, not you, but I'm speaking about the Trump administration. And then planes started crashing. And now you've got these problems where you have understaffing at Newark Airport. And so Duffy, I got some more here. Duffy was on television asking, being asked, when the hell are you going to fix this? When, he says what you see. Remember yesterday, the lights are blinking, the sirens are turning. What you see in Newark is going to happen in other places across the country. And when he was asked, he was just asked in that same press conference I just showed you. Okay, you say that this is a problem, Transportation Secretary Duffy. When will it be that you get this straightened out? Okay, when are you going to get this straightened out? Remember, this is the same guy we showed yesterday who was admitted that Elon Musk had his hand in this. Okay, let's show you when he is asked a simple question of when are you going to make flying safe again? Because people are saying it's not safe to fly out of Newark. Okay, let's listen to what he had to say.
Pushing our contractors to actually fix these telecom issues that we have right now. And it was supposed to be the end of the summer. I don't want to give you a date because you're going to hold me to it, but we are pushing them to radically speed up the time frame in which they can deliver new telecom into the Philly Tracon, which should resolve the issues that we're experiencing.
What? We're getting the contractors to do it? If Donald fucking Trump made this a priority instead of figuring out how he can squeeze a $400 million plane out of a foreign nation, out of Qatar, the same country that in 2017 he said was a sponsor of terrorism, because that's his gig. He calls people names until they give him what he wants for his own personal aggrandizement. If Donald Trump wasn't busy violating the Constitution by accepting this foreign gift for his personal benefit without the permission of Congress, if he wasn't busy doing that or golfing, whatever the fuck he does from day to day, but made it a priority for them to fix this problem with software and to hire back the air traffic controllers and to end this war on woke, if he just went on television and said, you know what? We were wrong. We had a good system and we prioritized making you safe and making the economy work. And for the people who want to travel in the United States, having that ability without chaos and fear. If he said that, it would fucking get done. But he doesn't. Because I don't think you see this connection yet, but Donald Trump doesn't fly commercial. He flies around in Air Force One, whether the new one that will be gold plated, that by the way will take years to refurbish. So he'll probably only use it as a private citizen, which is probably what he would prefer anyway, so no one sullies his space. But at any rate, even if it's done in a couple of years, and even if he's still president at the time, and even if he gets this plane, he doesn't fly commercial. But we do. And guess who else flies commercial? Yes, Sean Duffy. Sean Duffy flies commercial. And the deal is, he flies commercial. And when he's not talking to the press, but he's like maybe on a podcast talking to folks, he's honest about what he thinks about having his family members fly through Newark Airport. And he's more explicit. But even he doesn't have control over Donald Trump. So let's listen right now to that audio file of Sean Duffy kind of admitting
Newark Airport has just had a number of issues come up, in part due to air traffic controllers, the amount of people required to do the job, and it's a busy airport that I fly in and out of. So maybe a bit of a personal question too, with both a runway closed for construction till June, air traffic controller issues. I have to fly up next Monday morning to get there before your wife gets off TV.
Listen, it's the airport I use as well. By the way, my wife was flying out of Newark tomorrow. I switched her flight to LaGuardia.
Oh, my wife was flying out of Newark tomorrow, so I switched her flight to LaGuardia. You heard that. How about the rest of us dumb souls who can't just switch our flights? Who either fly out of Newark because that's where we had our flight planned or because we live in the area? What will it cost us? And is it just Newark, Mr. Duffy? Okay. So we're on a theme here with airplanes. We started out with the U.S. plane that flew to South Africa to show us that the idea of assimilating into Trump's America means supporting the notion of a caste system, which creates a hierarchy based on you are at the top and you matter in Trump's and the Republican Party's hierarchy. If you are white, wealthy, and well-connected with men at the top, and patriarchy, definitely the order of the day. And that airplane, paid for by you and me, brought them in, despite the fact, let these 50 folks cut ahead of the other people in other countries who are facing genocide, of the people who are in the United States, who are here seeking asylum protection from violence in their own countries, who he mocks and says are criminals that he is unlawfully sending away on planes, right? And then we have his plane and our planes. Okay, so the plane becomes a metaphor for transportation. A plane isn't just transportation, right? He wants an opulent $400 million plane to swan around the world. And the rest of us will be lucky if our planes don't crash. The plane becomes a metaphor, a vehicle for status here and for access. A plane that brings you into the United States and welcomes you and says you matter is a plane that brings in white people. And the planes that say you don't even deserve the protection of the U.S. Constitution, even though the Supreme Court says you do, are the planes that take away anyone and everyone, whether U.S. citizen or not, who Donald Trump deems is either not up high in the hierarchy or is distasteful to the people at the top or is challenging the regime. It sounds like a cult. It sounds like authoritarianism. It actually sounds like America in the times of slavery. We should not go back. So now I've got to tell you about the airlines. The airlines that is flying people. Avelo Airlines. And Avelo Airlines is the airline that is flying people. Let's take a look. Avelo Airlines. Do not fly on Avelo Airlines. Avelo Airlines is the airline company that is flying people from the United States who are being kidnapped and trafficked, essentially, and sent to prisons like in El Salvador and so on. And so the Avelo Airlines, apparently, I just heard yesterday, I didn't know, might be the only airline that flies out of Delaware. I just learned out that Avelo Airlines, let's see, I'm just going to pull this up. I just found out that Avelo Airlines flies out of Hartford, which is the airport that I use when I'm going to Western Massachusetts. So let's look. Let's book travel, you guys. Let's go from Bradley International Airport, BDL, great, to El Salvador. No results found. Oops. I guess they don't say that they do that. Let's go to New York. No results found. Where the hell can I go? I don't even know. Route map. Let's look at their route map. No, don't sign me up. Here's the route map for Avelo Airlines, right? Oh, they can go from, I did not know this. They can go from Bradley, where I go in Massachusetts, to Detroit, where I live. But I'm not going to take Avelo Airlines because Avelo Airlines also, let's just actually look and see. Okay, Bradley to Detroit. I wonder what the flights, they say they don't have it. Okay, I guess they don't do a direct flight. It's not that convenient. So why am I playing around with Avelo Airlines? I'm doing what you would do. You find out there's an airline near you. Maybe it's cheaper. Maybe it treats you well. Maybe you can fly for half the price. And so I'm messing around with that. But I shouldn't, because Avelo Airlines, again, is the airlines we should be protesting, because they said, we couldn't actually turn this down. The money is too good. How much money? How much money is it worth it? So let me share with you. It's not just me. Again, this may be new to you. So I want to share this with you about Avelo Airlines before we get Avelo Airlines. By the way, this is an article from yesterday, March 12th. Avelo Airlines faces backlash from aiding Trump's deportation campaign. The company, which serves airports in liberal cities on the coast, has agreed to operate chartered flights for immigration and customs enforcement. There is Avelo. It's the Nazi plane. Okay, deportation flights is what it's running. And so if you want to follow the tracking service of, it's called Flight Aware or Flight Trader 24, you can actually see when the planes arrive in places like Alexandria International Airport in Louisiana, which is one of the 5 locations ICE conducts regular flights. Okay. Now we have a quote from a professor, Allison Taylor of NYU, who focuses on corporate ethics and responsibility. And she says this is really fraught, really risky. The headlines and the general human aspect of this are not playing well. Yeah. Avelo Airlines, don't use them. Don't fly on that airline, period. It's disgusting. Okay. So let us do what I promised before we get to Crazy Town. I want to return to that golden airplane. And the reason why I want to return to it, and here we go. This is let's look at it. There's the interior of that airplane. The reason I want to return to it is there's been a great debate going on and a lot of a pylon that's gotten very personal on among the blue sky sphere about whether this technical language about whether Donald Trump accepting a $400 million plane from the government of Qatar, the question of whether is that corruption. Now, I know you might be shocked that I'm even asking that, but I, of course, believe it is corruption. No question. But my definition of corruption is more capacious than, well, let's separate for a second the fact that it's a violation of the Emoluments Clause for 1 second. My definition of corruption is much more capacious than John Roberts' majority on the Supreme Court definition of bribery under federal statutes. And in his view, and I'm going to, again, I don't subscribe to this, but there are some people like John Roberts and others who work in the global anti-corruption community who believe that corruption, you can only call something corruption if it is on the books illegal, such as an illegal bribe or kickback. And the reason why they take this view, and just bear with me and don't yell at them and, throw something at the screen for a moment. It's not my view, but they take this view because otherwise, in their mind, the term corruption becomes really broad and can actually be dangerous to people who resist authoritarian regimes. For example, Putin and others often jail their adversaries on trumped up charges of corruption because the word corruption is so broad. And so the reason why there are some people who are sticklers in the global anti-corruption community, I'm not talking about Roberts for a second, is because they want to make sure that, again, corruption charges aren't used, as they have been, against enemies of a totalitarian regime. But let's get back to this question of bribery under federal statute and that concept of corruption. The Supreme Court years ago, and this is something I teach in my white collar crime class and write about it in great detail in the book Big Dirty Money. This idea of corruption is that this idea of the concept of bribery has been narrowed to only reflect the plain language of the statute, one particular statute, 18 U.S.C. 201. I'm going to keep it really simple, but the idea is that it's only an unlawful bribe that you give or receive as a public official, or tip, like a thank you for doing something. That's only unlawful under the federal statutes, according to the Supreme Court, if there is a quid pro quo. If something of value is exchanged for an official act. Those are the two things. For, like, it could be an agreement, or because of an official act. Something of value exchanged because of or for an official act. That is it under the statute. Now, I guess what I want to share with you then is this. It has been the case that the Congress could have changed this. There are other provisions of federal law that forbid any money given to certain people. Like in the Labor Management Relations Act, there are prohibitions on union leaders getting anything of value, period. Congress could have changed the statute forbidding anything of value to be given or received by a member of Congress unless it is below a certain threshold amount. They could have put that in the statute, or they could have referred and incorporated by reference guidelines that they themselves make, but they didn't do it. And so that is that. However, I want to be clear. That ignores the fact that Donald Trump accepting this plane without congressional approval is in direct violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause in the U.S. Constitution. And we have talked about this, and believe it or not, in Trump's first administration, I used to write and speak publicly about this in Real Human Spaces. I have turned my attention to a bigger audience with you on YouTube. But this is no question an absolute violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause. And it's just so hard to watch people ignore the fact that this is unlawful. And once again, the people who have the ability to shut this down are not doing it. We have federal courts who said, yes, it is in the last term, who said it's a violation for the president of the United States without congressional approval to accept a present or anything of value, essentially, from a foreign government or foreign official. And so I want to share with you on this. Something that Norm Eisen, who was at one time an ethics czar under I'm thinking of Walter Schaub, who was the ethics czar, but he was also worked for Barack Obama. He was later he was also an ambassador, and he now runs The Contrarian with Jennifer Rubin. He worked at Crew, and I want to share with you what Norm said last night to Ari about this, about the law on this, so that no one is confused. Whether we argue, is this corrupt? I believe it is corrupt because my definition of corruption is using a public office for your private, to gain private wealth. To me, that is corruption. I have another definition. Hold on. I'm going to share with you from Big Dirty Money in a moment, but first, let me share with you Norm Eisen.
Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you took a free drink at a mixer, it's under the legal gift limit, and 10 being one of the worst types of White House corruption issues you've ever seen. Where does this rank, first of all, just for folks who are trying to make sense of this?
11. This is the worst scandal. Not only emoluments force one. We've learned a new term for emoluments. It was an 18th century term for anything of value to a president. Skeezy. Maybe they'll rewrite the Constitution with the skeezy clause, Ari. The plane is the tip of the iceberg, as your graphic just showed. The crypto conflicts are enormous as well, and also a vehicle for foreign governments to invest, with the UAE putting $2 billion into one of the Trump organizations, the World Financial Enterprise, that lists Donald Trump on its website. This is the worst corruption and conflict scandal that we've seen, and the plane just illustrates it.
I mean, there we go. So, friends, I'm going to wait. We're at the end of the show. And so I'm not actually going to share with you my theory of corruption. Corruption, my friends, will still be going on after today. So we will share that then. But for now, I do want to share with you a crazy town. Oh, shoot. I'm having a hard time finding my crazy towns right now. But I thought, for old time's sake, that we would share. And I'm trying to find an older crazy town for old time's sake. And I might not be able to find it. I hate to tell you this, guys. I do want to share with you something absolutely batty. This is good. This is good. You have not seen this one. Let's go. This is Donald. Oh, I know how I can set this up. Donald Trump, as you know, has capitulated, and he has basically backed away from his idiotic trade war, which helped the stock market spike yesterday. And he claims that China backed down, but China did nothing of the sort. Donald Trump gave up with his tail between his legs. But remember back in the days of the trade war, when he was capitulating to the UK, he'd been real tough, but then he wanted to make sure that, that all his rich friends, again, the white, wealthy, well-connected men and women who want to get a Rolls Royce, if they could still get their Rolls Royce. Okay. He doesn't care as much about the rest of us and Ford pickup trucks. Around that same time, he was obsessed with James Bond. What world does James Bond inhabit? I think you know. Let's play this. Oops, I'm sorry. I've got to move this. I'm having a bit of a problem. Okay, I think I got this. Sorry, guys. I thought I had this. Bear with me. I thought I was able to pull this up. It is about James Bond. I swear to you guys. I think it's on my desktop now, and I'm having one of those moments where if you bear with me, I swear to you, we will get to the James Bond clip. Oh my gosh. This is what happens when you produce a show entirely on your own. So there it is. I might not be able to. Okay, guys, Crazy Town. Crazy Town is me, myself, and I. And with that, I promise you to have loaded up a Crazy Town tomorrow and not given you this hell. And with that, my friends, I want to thank you for being here, and I will see you. Please follow, please like. We are getting almost to 9,000, and we'll soon be at 10. Love you guys. Mwah.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Gen Taub show where welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Gen Taub show.